resigned because?
Because I felt that Patsy is involved in this death, in this tragedy, and I felt it had become such a debacle and was going nowhere. Out of frustration, I left the case in police work.
That was 8 years ago on Larry King Live when former police detective Steve Thomas confronted John and Patsy Ramsey, suggesting JonBenét's mother may have killed her daughter. Both parents were under a cloud of suspicion until this week when DNA evidence cleared the family.
It's hard for people to accept, I think, that someone would come into a home and murder a child from their bed. And we were perhaps an answer. Sadly, there's 2,000 children murdered in our country every year, and for some reason ours became a very, very public event.
It has taken 12 years to exonerate John, his late wife Patsy, and JonBenét's brother Burke. We know authorities have isolated the genetic profile of the killer, and they got it from a major new breakthrough in forensic science. What is it? How does it work? Tonight we want to show you by taking you inside the lab. With tonight's Crime and Punishment Report, here's CNN's Brian Todd.
In a cold case more than 11 years old, a dramatic turn. JonBené Ramsey's family is cleared of her murder by prosecutors who tapped into a new world of DNA testing. This office park in Lorton, Virginia may seem an unlikely setting, but this is where the evidence finally turned in the Ramseys' favor. The labs of Bodie Technology, where prosecutors from Boulder, Colorado came for what's called touch evidence DNA testing. How's it different from traditional body fluid DNA tests?
Touch samples are samples you can't see. You can't look at an item and say, there's touch evidence. It's not a blood stain. It's not a seminal stain. It's an area where you think that person may have been grabbed.
DNA analyst Angela Williamson handled the Ramsey case. She can't show us the long johns belonging to JonBené Ramsey they tested here, but she takes us through the process with a pair of shorts.
This is essentially where the analysis process begins. Say I'm the perpetrator and I've grabbed this piece of clothing, pulled down or pulled any other direction, and then left it. Angela, you're going to tell me how you take the sample from this particular piece of clothing, a skin sample.
So once we know that information, we would mark the area where we think that you have made contact. In this case, I'd mark quite a large area like this, and I would also include the inside. Then you just get your scalpel blade and take a fine layer of shavings from the top surface.
The shavings from my skin cells are placed in a small vial. For hard surfaces, swabs are used. Next step, extraction, using machines like this centrifuge to remove dyes, dirt, bacteria from the skin cell DNA sample.
That one takes about 2 hours. We have one that takes almost 2 days.
Next, the samples are copied, amplified. Extraneous DNA is cleaned out in these hoods with UV rays. Then they can get a profile. In the Ramsey case,
the DNA profile that we obtain is attributed to an unknown male. There is an XY chromosome present.
One important part of this, touch evidence is used at the state and local levels on cases, but federal agents tell us there are certain types of touch evidence they don't use because the technology's not been perfected yet. This is when there are only minute amounts of skin cell DNA available, and you could get a false positive. Brian Todd, CNN, Lorton, Virginia.
Touch DNA is an important new tool in solving crimes, but the science may actually be the easy part. DNA samples aren't taken from every criminal or every arrest. Why not? Joining us for answers is CNN senior legal analyst Jeff Toobin. Jeff, we just saw in Brian Todd's piece that, investigators now have a complete DNA profile of this person they believe to be the killer. But ultimately, is it going to help them catch this person?
You need to test that sample against known collected samples, but there are not really that many samples on file. The FBI has 55 million fingerprints. They take fingerprints from everybody. I gave it when I was an assistant U.S. attorney. Anyone who gets a summer job in the government has to give fingerprints. But the CODIS DNA database only has about 5 million names in it. So the odds of getting a cold hit just running the profile through the database is much lower because there's just so many fewer people in the database.
But have cold hits been known to happen?
They have, because the people who are in the database are convicted criminals. They tend to be repeat offenders, so they do turn up in these cases.
JonBenét's father, John Ramsey, said yesterday that he wants a law that would require police, when they make a felony arrest, to put that DNA into a national database. Something that might happen, or no?
It's a very good idea. So far, the law has been much more restrictive in when you can take DNA from people. You can take fingerprints from people all the time. You don't need a court order.
Right.
But DNA, they have said, the courts have said it's a more personal intrusion. It tells you more about a person than a fingerprint. So we're not going to let mere suspects be tested. The other point is simply money. There are lots of samples